For this unit, we're going to be using a Kenmore Elite, and it's a 8,000 BT rated unit here. While I was sorting through the electrical, I had Cadence start cutting the location for this window unit. Using the angle grinder was the easiest thing, so a lot of the audio had to be recorded separately. I'm pulling the unit apart here to access the control system. There's that factory room temperature sensor, and here's our printed circuit board. So I'm trying to gain access to the compressor and fan wires that are hiding behind here, so we have to get that out of there. After sorting through it, I figured out that there was a main red wire that feeds to the compressor off of a relay. I wanted to confirm that, so we're going to be looking for a schematic. There's the factory room temperature sensor and the factory coil temperature sensor location. Looking at this unit, there is a schematic on the corner there behind the cover, so you want to look for that. So that's a relay there, and that's our common, which is coming off black. So that's our line voltage going to the relay, and then when it calls for the compressor, it's feeding on common. The other two go through the capacitor and connect for start and run. So it's breaking a common. So we're going to tie onto that with a manual controller. Instead of fussing over sensors like the other brands do, we're going to get rid of all that nonsense. And we're going to power the fan motor constantly, and we're going to control power to the compressor. Okay, so looking at the diagram, we have a blue on P9 that we don't know where it comes from. Well, we have outputs here, black for start and blue for run. We need to see what that's for. We currently have a hot that we're aware of for line. Where's our neutral? So we want to see for sure what P9 is. Looking at the board, that's this one here. This is P9. Let's see. This is P9. This is P7. This is a neutral coming right off of the power wire. Feeds the whole thing. So what we'll do is pop these off of here, and we're going to ohm across these two terminals, and just to make sure that this is feeding this directly. I'm pulling the factory neutral off the control board, and then we're going to pull this blue wire off that feeds to the capacitor. I have my meter here. We are going to be set up in the resistance mode. That's checking for ohms. So we're going to ohm across these two terminals. Here I'm showing that we're actually in the resistance mode. So you want to make sure you got your meter set right. We're going to check between these two terminals. Remember, for resistance, we need a low number if we are fully connected. So I have 0.01 down there. It's kind of hard to see, but we are a solid connection between blue and white through that circuit board. So we can directly connect that neutral right onto the capacitor now. The factory blue wire had a spade and the neutral had a spade. So we're going to just connect that right on the capacitor for the time being until we adapt our new controller later. Nowhere in our schematic does it tell us what speed is what wire. So what we can do is look in here at our fan motor, and it tells us on the wiring here. Let's see if I can reach in here. It looks like yellow is medium, white is low, and red is high in parentheses. So we're going to use the red wire. With all the other wires that we don't need capped off with wire nuts, we now have a black for hot, a red for a compressor, and a red for fan. Very simple setup here. So for this application, we are using a Ranco, and this is a T1, I call it a T111, but it's an ETC 111-00000. So we're going to be running this manually. We're not relying on a bunch of sensors and the factory controller and all that other stuff. We are on a fixed fan speed and controlling compressor on, compressor off, based off of one sensor that's attached to this Ranco. So it comes with one sensor. That's all we need is one sensor. Keep it simple. We're going to monitor coil temperature and create a modulation up and down in a range that will kick the compressor on and off based on how cold the coil is, and that will allow us to create a range of where we want this thing to hit. So it's kind of a flexible way of doing things, but it works and it's very simple. So we don't have a bunch of complicated things, especially if the power goes off. This thing is going to reboot very quickly and effectively. Whereas a lot of these window units, when you kill power to them, if the power blips for more than a second, you have to manually come in, push the on button, switch it back over to cool. And this Ranco is going to allow for a very simple reboot of this system if something happens. Now, since this is going to be rented by somebody and we don't have a separate meter just for this, we are renting this as square footage, and then they're going to pay electricity. So how are we going to do that? We have a meter here that just plug and play. You plug it right in the receptacle, and then you plug your device right into this, and it will monitor the kilowatt hours for us. And then we're just going to have to, tell them monthly, how much they used. But it's a simple way of handling this without rewiring the entire building for a second meter on the side of the building. Reviewing the wiring for the Ranco, we have the 120 black wire on the upper set of terminals coming into the center screw there. Then we have the white neutral on the right screw. The black is tied on to the common of the lower set of terminals, so that's the right screw. The center screw is our normally open circuit feeding back to the compressor. So we chose the normally open because the compressor on time is rather short once this cooler is down to temperature. So that's going to give the relay less run time than as if we were normally closed and had to hold it open. So this is going to be less runtime on that relay going with normally open. So let's try a real brief overview of what we have here. Simple window unit. Fan is wired live all the time on high fan speed. Compressor power is coming down to our Ranco. If the temperature meets the needs, it's going to send power back up to the compressor. So as soon as the coil gets too cold, the Ranco shuts the compressor back off, and that's it. So if we set it at 30 with a differential of 5, it's going to run the coil temperature down to 30 and shut off the compressor, let it come back up to 35, and it's going to kick the compressor back on. And it'll just up, down, all day long. If the power goes out, our Ranco holds memory. So as soon as the power comes back on, boom, instantly back on. We don't have to come in and push a button to start this thing back up. A lot of these factory window unit controllers, when the power goes out, you have to come back in, push it on, and some of them you even have to switch back on to air conditioning mode as well. So that can be aggravating. I've had to deal with that with many locations. So this is now going to give us a simple approach that can repeat itself automatically without user input. If you guys have any questions on this simple setup, or if you have any comments that can help our users and our audience, please leave a comment down below. Please subscribe and like this video. Really appreciate the support. Let's keep it going.